Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to show how the practical issues on the ground with the Northern Ireland Protocol, not the politics, shows that there is no way of ever getting Brexit done. While we remain outside of the single market, there will never be a time when the UK is not engaged in negotiations with the EU, and so the notion of getting a final settlement is impossible to achieve. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I've discussed recently how the Northern Ireland Protocol political discussions are actually much more constructive now. Liz Truss, compared to her predecessor David Frost, actually wants to see it to achieve some progress, and so she's engaging it in a spirit of cooperation. However, I've also said that she will not achieve her stated aim of a final settlement because there is a decisive section of the Conservative Parliamentary Party that will not accept the protocol in any settled form. However, even were this not the case, the Brexit talks will never end. Even if the UK government was true to its word and never threatened to tear up any treaties, and so trust had been retained, there is no way to conclude Brexit talks forever. And this is because, like everything else where Northern Ireland is concerned, the customs and standards border that came as a result of Brexit can never be fixed in time. The core problem really is this, I suppose. Because the UK decided to leave the customs union single market, there needs to be a customs and standards border between the UK and the EU. It's obvious enough, no matter how many times Brexiteers try and say it's not. At the end of the day, every market has rules. Our market has rules. The EU market has rules. Our rules are now different. So how do you make sure that the rules remain the same in each market? You need someone to check what is passing from one to the other. That is the trade border. And the natural place for this trade border, which is the combination of customs and standards border, is inside Ireland. Well, that is a massive no-no. The DUP and similar fringe groups aside, everyone is fully seized of the notion that this is not happening. Not just a direct breach of the Good Friday Agreement, we're not hiding behind a treaty here, but it's inconsistent with peace in Ireland, which is why the treaty existed in the first place. So what to do? There were options, but the one Boris Johnson went with was to put it between Britain and Northern Ireland. This has the effect of impeding trade inside the UK. Northern Ireland effectively remained in the single market for goods, just for goods, not services, to make it work. But here's the thing. We have to make sure that the single market doesn't have a whacking great Northern Ireland-sized hole in it. So we have to make sure that goods which are not permitted in the EU cannot pass from Northern Ireland to the Republic of Ireland. And that's international rules. Never mind moaning about the EU. International, your precious World Trade Organization rules, don't you know? So you need trade restrictions. But it's politically difficult to have trade restrictions inside your own country. What other country has these? So the Irish Sea border became a bit of a compromise. It does represent a trade barrier inside the UK, but that trade barrier is not as severe as, say, between Britain and actual EU countries like, France or Netherlands. That being said, it probably should be. It's all very well brainless Brexiteers saying, what's the harm in sausages going from Britain to Northern Ireland if they never go to the Republic? How do you know they will never go to the Republic? If you don't have paperwork and checks, you cannot know where they're going, can you? Then we come to the next argument, that our standards are basically the same, so what's the fuss? Well, the main fuss is that the government have already started to lower our standards, so they're not exactly the same, and they've promised to do so much more. In addition, the EU are raising their standards. So even if the UK stood still and didn't lower our standards, the EU raising them still means that there's going to be divergence between our markets. The EU cannot manage if unlawful or undocumented goods can pass from a third country into their single market, because then they would be breaking international rules and people would lose confidence with the single market. If the UK wants to allow rampant smuggling into its territory, as we are doing, then they can do that. Actually, technically we can't. We're breaking international rules, but at the moment no one seems to mind. The world's got bigger problems. But the EU needs to maintain the integrity of its market in order for others to get the benefit of being inside it. Brexit is also not the fault of a single current EU member state. It's the Conservatives' fault in its entirety, and they can deal with the consequences. They are the ones who chose to deliberately lie to the public. They are the ones who pushed for the referendum. They are the ones who argued for the referendum. They are the ones who, after the referendum of saying we're never going to leave the single market, said we must leave the single market. They own everything. I'm sure those outside Britain feel the same way, but I just feel it's a bit of a cheek that the Conservatives unilaterally decided that we would have a hard Brexit, but then insist that dealing with the consequences should be a team effort with the EU. It's like shitting the bed and insisting that others are duty bound to help you clean the sheets. Frankly, any help we get should be appreciated, not attacked as not doing enough. Another reason to be embarrassed to be British. But anyway, back to the point. And as our standards continue to diverge, we will constantly need to have talks about how to deal with particular issues. I read a report recently about a visit from MPs to Northern Ireland, fact-finding mission, find out how to talk to businesses on the ground, see how things are running. It did say that these businesses, they wanted action, but they didn't want the protocol removing. This is a message we consistently get. Never mind what some politicians say. Northern Ireland benefits from its best of both worlds, and businesses see that. It can export freely to both the EU and the UK, unique position. It just wants a more stable situation to deal with imports as well, really. It wants to know what the deal is. But the report also mentioned the sorts of issues that will always come up. Like even if, just let's say Truss and Shevkovich agreed on a practical implementation of all the current issues, every single good, all sorted, Brexit still wouldn't be done. They would still need to hold talks later. Examples that came up. So the UK government has just allowed the use of a pesticide for sugar beet. The EU hasn't. So there will need to be a discussion as to whether products using this pesticide are allowed to be exported from Britain to Northern Ireland. Like how much of a risk does it pose to the single market? That would be the discussion that needs to take place. That is an example of the UK lowering standards. Then there was also the example of the EU removing titanium dioxide from foods in time. Over time, it's not happened yet. This is the EU raising standards, but the UK is not expected to do likewise. So these products can currently be exported to Northern Ireland, no problem, because they're fine in the single market right now. But when they are not, as will happen in the future, there will have to be a discussion about that, because they'll be allowed in Britain, not in the EU. So then you'll have to ask, so what is the risk of allowing them to go from Britain to Northern Ireland? And you have to, and these issues will always come up. Whenever the EU raises standards unilaterally or the UK lowers standards unilaterally, there will have to be a discussion as to how to deal with the affected products if they are being exported from Britain to Northern Ireland. It will never end. This is because there are only two ways to put a final settlement in place that doesn't need constant negotiation. The first is to apply full import and export controls at the border between Britain and Northern Ireland. That way, exports from Britain to Northern Ireland are dealt with in exactly the same way as exports from Britain to, say, France, for example. Now, that would work on a practical level. Technically, absolutely works, not a problem. Rules would be updated, but they always are in any market. That's not specifically to do with Brexit as such. But it would not require any further political resources. Just maintain a proper customs and standard borders in the Irish Sea, no grace periods, no easements. Just, do it properly. However, although that works from a technical point of view, politically impossible, of course, you put a hard trade border inside your own country. We are enough of a laughingstock as it is without literally building a big old garden fence in the middle of our own garden. The second option is to rejoin the customs union single market. That would not only eliminate the need for never-ending negotiations, but also eliminate the need for that customs and standard border completely. Obviously, this also works on a practical level, but is also currently politically impossible. And that's it. Those are your options, no others. So even when we have agreed the practical implementation of exports that we need to consider now, and we are a long way from doing that, because Britain and the EU will continue to diverge on standards, there will never be a time when we do not need to keep negotiating. Every time a standard changes, right, we need to discuss this list of products now. And they are negotiations. Like you may imagine, well, surely you just have a team of officials who takes part in these technical talks and works something out. No, because the EU will want to err on the side of strong measures against smuggling, of course. Britain will want to err on the side of not having obstacles to that trade at all. They don't care about smuggling. So you can't just leave everything to officials to sort it out, even though inevitably you would have to for a lot of the legwork. But you'll get to a point that there will be political sensitivities with certain products. So these discussions will therefore require ministers to be involved as well. So remember how the Conservatives said to vote for them to get Brexit done. How if we vote for Labour, they ain't even got a deal. They'll still be negotiating for months and dragging the pain out. Yeah, so with the Conservatives we get never-ending negotiations. With Labour we got a promise of another referendum and the whole thing would be done and dusted by now, as we would have reversed our folly from 2016. But there it is. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.